Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol-Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol-free well-being and transformational coach, and the best-selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol-Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol-free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Thrive Alcohol Free. I am so pleased you're here, and I hope you've had a good week. So this week we have an expert guest on, and really interesting conversation. Really excited to talk to Geeta Sidhu-Robb. So Geeta is a 5-time winner of the Entrepreneur and Businesswoman of the Year award, having developed the hugely successful Nosh Detox in 2008 after her son was born with severe food allergies, eczema, asthma, and anaphylaxis. She has built a formidable reputation for success in the health and nutrition industry, counting Gwyneth Paltrow as one of her first clients. She retrained from lawyer to a health and wellness coach for successful professional women in 2014. And over the years, she's built up a roster of world-famous clients working with the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, Nadia Swarovski, Gurinder Chanda from Bend It Like Beckham, Sam Smith of FinCap, and working with her from 3 million to an IPO and a £55 million exit, and numerous other successful women CEOs, charity heads, country heads, and celebrities. Her coaching clients describe working with her as transformational and life-changing, and credit her coaching with helping them get promotions, double revenue, manage successful IPOs, and launching massive company growth, and with helping them create successful, happy personal lives alongside. So I am so pleased that Geeta is with us, and we talk about nutrition, sugar, alcohol, and the effects of nutrition and sugar, as well as emotions. So it's really great to have an expert on in this space. So without further ado, here is the conversation with Geeta. Hi, so welcome, Geeta. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm really pleased you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. So why don't we start from the beginning? It'd be really interesting. You know, you've obviously got Nosh Detox, which is a fabulous organization, and you've worked with some incredible people. So I'd love to hear a bit about your story and what got you to that point and what you've been doing since.
Oh, I'll do the Cliff Notes version. I mean, I'm Indian, so I always laugh, and I'm like, well, you know, it's doctor, lawyer, accountant, marriage, or death, and I picked law. So I was a corporate lawyer, and then my first child, who I had in my 20s, was very ill, and he had very bad food allergies. He was anaphylactic. And so he would eat something and die. And we would literally have to get him resuscitated. And we were in hospital in intensive care. He was in a coma. And all this kept happening again and again. And they kept telling me there wasn't a solution. And I was like, there has to be one, you know, and there's the joy of ignorance of youth where I was like, I'm sure there's a solution. And so I looked for solutions. I spent the next 7 years working because, you know, that was what I had to do. But I spent the next 7 years looking for solutions to heal my son. And he had asthma, anaphylaxis, eczema, and they all tend to go together. And I cured him. I cured him of his asthma. I cured him of his eczema. The anaphylaxis is a slightly different thing. I made him sturdier and more robust. Then fast forward a few years, and I ended up getting divorced with 3 small kids under the age of 6. So there was a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And it was a terrible divorce. We walked out of this terrible marriage, which is relevant, but pertinent, because he was actually somebody who drank too much. And I had never really met that. I hadn't understood. We didn't grow up in that kind of environment, so I didn't know how to manage the process. But when we finally got up and walked out, I feel like I said we walked out. I actually remember the other day, it was my son who must have been 6 or 7. And I remember him turning to me once and said, "Why are we still here?" And I remember thinking, don't know. And everything kind of dropped away. The fear I had of what was I going to do, how are we going to live, and all this stuff. And I left. And it ended up all my worst fears and my best dreams came true all in one fell swoop. And I had nowhere to live. My parents were really against the fact that I had left this great, very financially lucrative marriage, which we had built a company together. I didn't marry money. And I ended up sleeping on a girlfriend's floor for 6 months. Bless the woman. She had 1 bedroom that was spare, and she gave it to us. And when I came out of there, I was trying to work out. We were hustling, obviously, because I had £14 a day to live off, and I sort of didn't know quite how to survive. And I lost my job as a lawyer, obviously. And I just was looking, what do I know how to do? And the thing I knew how to do was I could take anyone's body and transform it. That was what I knew how to do. And I was like, well, I wonder if somebody wants to pay me for that. And I was acting as a corporate negotiator. I was flying in and out of countries, fixing problems. And it was such a shitty way to live because I needed to be at home with the kids because they were little and my son was so ill and I needed carers all the time and all this stuff. So I thought, well, I'm just going to try. And so 2007, I set up the first business in this country that delivered food to people. And I delivered a full day's food. And I would deliver to you, the format you see now, we invented that. It was breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner. And Nosh Detox was born. Tested it for a year, and then I thought, I think this might work. And in 2008, that's what I started to do full time.
Wow, amazing.
But kind of that's how we got there.
Yeah, fantastic. Gosh, and you've been through so much as well. And how did you manage at the time with 3 young children? Obviously, your friend, amazing woman, obviously.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
How did you sort of have the, I suppose, confidence to then go on and do something like setting up a brand new business, which is what you effectively did? You sort of went from a low to a massive high.
I don't know that I did that because I was confident. I think poverty is such a fabulous driver. And we were so incredibly poor. And we'd come from this very wealthy lifestyle to this very poor one. And I remember my ex-husband walking past me one day as he dropped the kids off or came to pick them up or just came to yell abuse at me, whatever it was. And he said, if you just stayed with me, at least the children could be in the same school they've always been in. Now you've taken this amazing house with a swimming pool away from them. And I remember thinking, go straight to hell. And any thoughts I had of taking the kids out of their very expensive private school evaporated. And I was like, you are staying in those schools if I have to blooming sell things to make it happen. And the only thing I wasn't willing to sell was my body, because I was very clear about that. And so I don't think I had any confidence. I think I was 100% desperate. So I did anything and everything that I could, short of anything involving my personal, but I did. And people would say, do you want, I'm like, how much? And they're like, I was like, how much? And they were like, do you want to know? I'm like, no, I just want to know how much. And I did some seriously wacky shit. I spent a lot of time on TV at the time. So I did some massive TV shows that I got paid like 1 term. That's how I saw it. 1 term school fees, 1 term school fees. I was doing that. I went and I brokered a deal around a pipeline in Belarus with people with beards and guns. And I came out alive. It was, I have to say, I look back and I think, wow, that was interesting.
Wow.
God, there, but for the grace of God, go I. So I'm not sure I was confident. I definitely don't think I was intelligent. I was desperate. We had no money. We couldn't eat. I had 2 pairs of shoes and I had 4 dresses. And that's it. And so I was like, well, get on with it. So I did. Nobody told me it was amazing, because if I thought that, I'd have probably stopped. I was like, I'm just going to go do this and hope it works.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Okay, so I mean, obviously nutrition is so important when people stop drinking, and just being mindful of it, because your whole body is recalibrating. It takes a lot to sort of go back to what it's supposed to be, having been working so hard. And and I know you also fundamentally believe that nutrition and emotions go hand in hand. So I'd love to hear about, one, from a nutrition perspective, what advice can you give for people that have maybe, stopped drinking, and what's the best way to eat and what they should be eating, and also the emotional side as well that you talk about.
I think the thing is that there's just, the first thing to start with is processed food is evil. All processed food is evil. If you look at any kind of food and you can't identify what that food is, you should never put it in your mouth, because everything you put in your mouth tells your body and your mind what you think of it. And so that's the starting point. The second part of this is that a standard traditional foundational diet works for everyone, for everything. And we teach this with foundations courses all over the place, because everybody needs to learn how to eat properly again, because I think something happened along the way and we forgot. This good old-fashioned upbringing that we had, that just had normal food that people prepared and put in front of you, sort of doesn't seem to exist. And so what I'm always saying to people is that, honestly, if you can eat fruit, fat, fiber, and protein every single meal, not quite, almost every single meal and every single day, you really will get everything that you need from that. And the way to do that is to think, what are the best possible ingredients I can afford? And you can afford, even though food is appallingly expensive at the moment, you can afford phenomenal ingredients if you buy raw ingredients. Because what we don't seem to understand is that when you buy a courgette and an aubergine and 4 potatoes, it costs very little, but that's 2 to 3 meals for you there for a family of 3. I mean, you can add, no, can of tomatoes probably helps. So when you've got that, you've got, and this is what the majority of Africa and continent and India do every single day of their lives. Lentils will last you for a whole flipping year. So ultimately the second step after understanding that is to think, right, if you took a piece of fruit like an apple or a banana or whatever and ate 3 of those across a day, that's most of your enzymes that you need for the day. It helps your stomach start working again. It's digestive enzymes. It heals you on a cellular level. And it rehydrates you. And when you stop drinking, what fruit does when it's ripe fruit is that I do bang on a little bit about how you should be ripening fruit at home, and I actually make videos about this because I care about it so much. It satiates the sweet tooth that you crave when you stop drinking, because alcohol has so much sugar in it that fruit that has no sugar in it but is sweet and is fiber is a phenomenal thing to replace that with. So that's one step. Then every single, I have this, I'm trying to think, I have this thing I usually draw on, but I don't know where it is. Because my daughter helped me tidy my office. I'm never going to find anything again as long as I live. But if you imagine this is your plate, and imagine dividing it up like a peace symbol. And within the thirds of the upside down Y that forms a peace symbol, one portion is fat, one portion is fiber, one portion is protein. And that's literally how you make every single meal look. So someone like me who is vegetarian, I don't get any fat in my food. People always go, how do vegetarians get protein? We get a lot more protein than we do fat. I literally don't get fat in my food. And it was such a learning curve for me that I trained myself that every meal I now look at, I have to look at, did I click the protein? Got it, yeah, but the fat. and then I will go look for something to put fat on my plate. And the reason that really matters is because when you give up drinking, one of the things that happens is that your taste buds come back to life. And fat is a carrier of flavor. And so it changes. It's like giving up smoking. It changes how your food tastes when you're eating it, and it stops it being quite so bland. And also it helps brain function, which is something we tend to give up a bit when we, drink instead. So, and you need, in terms of your protein, you only need 0.8 grams per kilo of weight. So we do overdo that protein sometimes. But really the fat and the fiber, you should have, they have this statistic where you should eat 30 plant-based foods in a week. And that sort of doesn't sound too much and then sounds like a lot when you break it down. But that's, across a week, that's 3 plant-based products in a day. So if you ate, a salad, you'd probably cover that without really thinking, and then a cooked vegetable, and you'd be done. So does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find it interesting because so many people shy away from the fats, don't they? They sort of think
we've been trained that fat makes you fat.
Exactly. So
which it doesn't.
Exactly. So in terms of the types of fats, the good fats, can you give some examples of what people should be?
Well, honestly, people say that, and if it's unprocessed fat, just eat it. Make your life simple. I'm all about the fact that you're busy as hell, and but yeah, everybody has a listing in their brain of good fats. It's your standard things. There's nuts, there's seeds, there's there's tahini, there's hummus, there's yogurt, avocados. There's all kinds of things. But honestly, if you even repeated 3 fats across a week and chose one every day, that would be good by me. I'd be happy with that. Olive oil. I use a ton of olive oil. I'll be looking at my plate and I'll be like, bugger, I haven't got enough fat. And I'm reaching for the olive oil bottle, pouring it all over my food, thinking, okay. Then the other thing with it that to be really careful with, and this is absolutely unusual advice, is that if you're not going to eat processed food, the other thing you have to do is put salt on your food, because normal food doesn't have salt. And so for me, for example, I have quite low blood pressure, and I will get to a place in the day where I can notice when I've not had enough salt, because my pressure just drops catastrophically, and I'm like, okay. And so, be aware, test and see if a little bit of salt in your food perks you up. And if it does, then be aware that you need it. And that's why people will do snacks like peanut butter in celery and stuff, because the peanut butter has salt. And then the other thing I do is freeze organic fruit, and then I'll take out frozen cherries, which are insanely amazing, by the way, and then eat them as a snack, or frozen blueberries, which I don't like as much. But the thing with it that changes this is that because how you feel determines how you eat. It's really important to be aware of that, and especially, and this is something you obviously talk about a lot and work with a lot, is that, but if we use alcohol as a coping mechanism, we don't have really well developed emotional infrastructure to manage our processes so well. And that means that you don't have the emotional infrastructure to develop good eating habits and valuing yourself and deciding that you have a worth. And you don't have these things in your system. But the joy of that is that if you can be aware of that, then you don't have to continuously sabotage yourself without being aware of it. Like, I will wake up and I'll be like, I would love a white bread sandwich with jam and butter. And I'll stop for a moment and I'll be like, oh, I'm really not doing well today. What the heck's going? And I will literally stop and think, wow, I am doing so badly. Why do I want to eat something that is just absolutely not in my lexicon of any type of food that I desire? And I will stop and think, okay, there's something wrong. And I'll unpack that emotion to find out what my problem is. If at the end of that I still want the sandwich, I'll go eat it, because I don't believe in treats. I'm a grown-ass woman. I don't need treating and untreating, but I will 100% stop. And so food is a great barometer of emotion.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And so how do you become conscious of that, really? Because we have so many automatic thoughts, and I think when you wake up in the morning unless you are trained to actually really think about your thoughts. Lots of people just go into autopilot, don't they? And so how do you actually take that pause and think, what is, because I want to eat this, it means that this emotion is going on?
I always think of it as a muscle. I think with anybody, when I'm coaching or talking or whatever, I always think of it as a muscle. And I tell people, you do not have this muscle. So if you're aware that you don't have this muscle, you don't have to hate yourself, you don't have to be down on yourself, you don't have to do any of the fear, shame, or guilt, you just don't have the muscle. Now, if you don't have a muscle, do you get the muscle by looking at the muscle and going, I hate myself, I don't have it? Or do you go and acquire the muscle?
Yeah.
So I'm like, just acquire the muscle, understand you don't have it. Because for me, the core concept I work by is that when I have absolute clarity as to the why of something, my life is infinitely easier. And I will, when I don't understand why I'm doing something, hire, beat, yell, talk, find people who help me break that why down. So I get that I have it. And so if you aren't doing the right things, just accept you don't have that muscle. It's like going to the gym. There are days it's going to hurt. There's days it's okay. There's days you want to do it. And the more often you do it, the more you get a muscle to do it, and it becomes easier to do it. And it's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
The beginning of the gym sucks for everyone when you've been off. Horrible.
It does, but it gets better as you keep going.
Exactly. And it's more enjoyable because you see the results. So when you wake up and you're an autopilot, you're not really, are you? There isn't such, you're choosing. So if you're not choosing that delicious banana salad and whatever, and you decide what you're going to have is some horrible processed cereal, there's your starting point that your day, you're like, I'm just not having a great day today. Okay, noted. Go and eat your cereal, move on and think, okay, if I was having a good day, what would I eat? And that can be your next meal.
Yeah, brilliant. I think this is fascinating because not many people think nutrition and emotion at the same time. And so how do you work with your clients to help them build that muscle?
We create a thing called a balance sheet. I have a thing called the balance sheet technique. And what I do with it is I get my clients to draw out 7 days on a piece of paper. And then I get them to treat it like a calendar. So it's usually in paper, and it'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at the top, and it'll have the times of the day down the side. And then I'll be like, okay, what is it that you want out of your week? I want to exercise. Well, okay, what kind of exercise and how often do you want? So I'll take me as an example. I want to weightlift twice a week, do Pilates once a week, and I do yoga twice a week, and I want to put them in. So what I do is I will look at because think about it this way. Our calendars don't usually contain our lives. Our calendars contain our external obligations. Now, this to me is very, on a fundamental level, absolute rubbish. Yeah. If it's my calendar, why does it not reflect what I need out of life? So I get everybody to change their calendars to be a reflection of their lives. You better believe my haircut tomorrow is in my calendar. My vet appointment is in my calendar. Therefore, why would my Pilates also not be in my calendar? That thing of, I forgot to eat. No, you didn't. You didn't prioritize. So that one just makes me crack up because I'm like, so do you have your nails look really good? Oh, so you got your nails done, but you didn't eat. That's very deliberate. Yeah. It's very deliberate to my mind. I don't want to judge you, but I want to help you. So the balance sheet technique is what are the things? So on the back of the piece of paper, I get them to write down what are important things they want to do every week. Usually it's exercise, eating fruit, eating well, I don't know, whatever it is. Going to see your best friend because you need to giggle for a bit, whatever it is that you need to do, going to see your mother, going to see your children, whatever. And then I get you to turn the page around and add it to the balance sheet calendar across the week. So that if I fail today, that's okay. I've got tomorrow and the next day to fit it in because I'm not a failure because I failed to do this thing. But of course, I don't really mind thinking about failing. So people get uptight about failing. I'm like, I have failed so many times I make speeches about it, frankly. So I'm highly robust where it comes to that. But, add it in your calendar. The balance sheet technique forces you to layer out your life across a week. Who do you want to be in this week? What do you want in your life? And I promise you, 1 or 2 or 3 weeks of this and your life changes because it's impossible to ignore your calendar. We're trained to use it.
Yeah, amazing. I think that sounds it seems so simple, but it's so effective, I can imagine. And I wonder, when people actually write down all the things they want to do, and then they get to the end of the week, and as you said, after sort of 3 weeks of doing this, I do imagine your life does change. But how do you stop yourself from potentially beating yourself up if you haven't quite managed to do it?
Because the core tenet of the balance sheet technique is to allow room for failure. The reason you have 7 days is that if it doesn't work today, you move it to another day in the calendar. If it doesn't work in this week's calendar, move it to next week's calendar.
Right, so it's
You're developing a muscle. And you cannot develop a muscle without pushing and pulling. Some days you will develop that muscle, some days you need to not be working on that muscle, and it's working on itself. Because what I'm trying to get you to understand is you need a scenario template of your life. And if you're not going to look at your life like that, I mean, I was a corporate negotiator, right? So I'm constantly negotiating. So I want to do this. How about if I do? I just think, okay, if I've got the muscle, then I've got the muscle. If I haven't got the muscle, I have to focus on building that muscle. Failure, I think people overrate failure. Like, you feel like a failure, and then, I mean, yeah, you're not going to die. Oh, you just feel terrible. Move on. I'm sure you'll feel terrible again. And then you'll feel good too.
Yeah, I think there's too much emphasis on failure at the, in the world. People do sort of see it as they're not allowed to fail. And
yeah, says who? I literally make speeches about how often I failed. Why would you not be allowed to fail? How do you learn something if you don't fail?
Exactly.
Imagine telling a baby, oh, you can't walk. Sorry. No one's ever going to do that. There's that lovely image that someone such a long time ago gave me that I remember all the time, that every blade of grass has an angel standing next to it, kneeling down, going, grow, grow, grow. And I'm like, that's the most beautiful image in the world. Now, if a blade of grass can have that, why can't you and I?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a really important thing to sort of mention, because a lot of people say they want to take a break from alcohol, and they will have, they'll say they'll take a month off, and then actually after a week it doesn't quite work out, and then they say, well, I'm going to give up now. There's no point because I've failed. I haven't done the week. And to your point, there's the next day, and there's the next day, and
also don't take a month off. Take today off, and then take tomorrow off. And then the next day off. I do that with food. I do that with excellence. I do it with growing your company. I do it with success. I do it with surviving my teenagers without murdering them. Like, just today. We'll let you live today. We'll see how tomorrow goes. It's everything, isn't it? How do you know what's going to happen tomorrow?
Absolutely.
So today you actually thought, I was going to do this and I didn't do this. Should we really throw our toys out the pram? I don't think so. Why don't we just try again tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the power of now, isn't it? So, no, brilliant.
And if you've got 8 days where you've constantly thought, I'm going to wake up and not drink, and then you've drunk, you clearly don't want to not drink. And that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just accept you where you are.
Yeah. And you learn and you grow, and that's the fundamental part, and that's the whole human journey, isn't it, really? So yeah, okay. So we've obviously touched on the emotions and the nutrition. So I'd really like to get your take on sugar, because a lot of people will stop drinking and then suddenly get this huge sugar head on. So
they'll need it. Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
So I wrote an article. One of my daughters rang me the other day and was laughing. She sent me a snapshot. I wrote an article in 2009 or 10 saying scientists have found that sugar is more addictive than cocaine. And so she found the article about 2 years ago and sent it to me laughing, going, you were ahead of your time. I'm like, thanks. The thing is, alcohol has immense amounts of sugar, and it gives you that high and the rush as well. And so fake rushes are actually very enjoyable, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't all be doing this. So when you then give up, the thing you need is your body is like, I need sugar, I need sugar, I need sugar. And then you get that rush from the sugar. So it's almost like a palliative version of it. The thing and sugar is absolutely appalling to give up. It's like coffee. Like people walk in the door and I'd be like, please don't give up coffee on my watch. Just go give up coffee on someone else's watch. And horrible, like mean. So what's my take on sugar? I think that when you eat something sweet, there's such a deep sense of self-love. And it's kind of, you connect your sweetness. And there's this thing of these lovely old Black men when they're about to kiss the little granddaughter and they're like, give me some sugar, and that kiss that you've got from a baby, and it brings you a sense of such joy in your heart. And so sugar is a shortcut to self-love and nurturing. And if you're not feeling so great about yourself, you eat it so you feel good because it tastes good in your mouth, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you want to, that's really what's happening. There isn't a lot of sugar in your life, as it were. So if you can create external sugar, you don't need to be eating that sugar all the time. And then there are just days where you need that sugar.
Yeah.
Right? There are days, like I woke up today and I was like, I'm all good. And then I got to about 2 o'clock and I was like, throw the toys out the pram. And I went and I got a date and 2 biscuits and literally happily munched my way through that and came back.
Yeah.
Those things also happen. But if you're going to have it, give yourself this rule: eat the fruit before you eat the sugar. Because crowding out a craving is 100 million times more effective. Well, actually, let's even be scientific about it. Studies have shown that people that will use crowding out as a concept of giving something up are something like 3 times more effective at giving it up than if they don't. And so if you're crowding something out, you're not going to give up the bad thing, because the minute you give something up, you hate your life. What you do is you put the good things in front of it. So if you're going to want sweet things, put in the fruit, beautiful, ripe, delicious fruit that you love, and have it all the way through the day, and do it every single day. And then there's a part of you that is still getting that sugar.
Really helpful. And I think, sugar is just something that constantly comes up. So hopefully if you're listening, this is helpful for you.
It's a very big deal when you give up drinking.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm fascinated because I know you've worked with lots of different people. So I'd love to maybe hear a bit about how, and I know now you work with everyone, regardless of celebrity, royalty, you work with everybody. But how did you end up getting to the point where you were meetings and working with so many different people?
You mean famous people?
Famous people, yes.
Yeah, I would love to say there was like some really clever plan behind it because it would make me look intelligent, but unfortunately, so Gwyneth Paltrow was one of our first clients, and we didn't even know, because bless the woman, she gave a fake name and paid us, and that's, I didn't realize how unique that was until we got to know a lot more celebrities who didn't want to pay us. And a lady from Vogue rang us up and said, Gwyneth Paltrow has just said you're her favorite detox. I was like, she did? Could I record you and play that across my website all the time and just not? And so what happened from that is that we then became kind of Hollywood LA favorites. And so they would send us all these people. And so that helped. And so we came from there. And then I was a public figure for a while, and I think maybe people were more when you're in the same industry, or you kind of feel, not that I'm in any way as famous as any of my clients, there's a place where these globally known men and women, which is such a very unique type of person to be, become very isolated. And it's just very hard to find people that you trust and people that will be very blunt with you. And you might have noticed, have a little tendency to bluntness. I may have hidden it really well and it wasn't clear, but I have a little tendency. So I'm very clear about saying, I think that's a really bad idea. Or no, I have a stupid tax. So when people really annoy me, I have a stupid tax. And I don't really care who you are, actually. And I will charge you whatever the stupid tax is. And it's always different for each person, because there's no point charging them money. They're all too wealthy. So I find stupid tax to charge people, because people are stupid. Don't stop being stupid because you're famous. And so it ended up that because I got comfortable being around them, my parents were very well known growing up. Maybe that was part of just being, I don't really care who you are, to be honest. And I'm definitely not starstruck on any level. It really doesn't work, because I think everybody is human and everybody has problems. And so many of these people are so deeply successful and their lives become very small as a result. People lie, they cheat, they turn on you. And as long as you pay the bill that I'm charging you for. I don't really care about the rest of it. And so it turned out that I have then spent the night in palaces and villas and all kinds of really interesting places. And people are like, you must come and spend the night. I'm like, do I have to? Because you're waking up in the morning terrified, thinking I'm going to just absolutely act like an idiot. And I haven't yet. So it's actually a lovely, I love my life. I love my job. And I obviously did something right somewhere, because I now get to work with people that impact the world. And then I get to work with, I have a phenomenal Tanzanian farmer who grows tomatoes. And I am the biggest expenditure that she has. And I love her dearly. And she pays me in installments. And so to me, I like both sides.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, then how best to get in touch with you?
Oh, just any social media is perfect. Go on where I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. Usually people kind of hear about me on TikTok and then come to Instagram to find out, or see me on TV or something, and they'll go to Instagram and say, who are you really? So I try not to tag my children on Instagram. DM me. There's so much visibility. There's GSR coaching, GeetaSidhu-Robb.com is one of the websites. Nosh Detox is another. There's so many ways. I make myself accessible, if not available though, but accessible at least. So I'm really happy to have conversations.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, I will put all that in the show notes.
Thank
and
you.
So we ask every guest, and what does thriving alcohol-free mean to you?
The thing about I stopped drinking when I walked out of my marriage, because I was married to somebody who really relied on alcohol a lot. And I would wake up every day and think, am I going to drink today? No, I'm not going to drink today. I don't want to drink today. And I remember feeling that image of being trapped to a concept of whether or not I would drink. And my life was so terrible that I was entitled to my drink. And I remember not liking that about my life. And I didn't want to make those choices because, and then when I ended up homeless with the children, I couldn't afford to have even one moment where I wasn't 100% switched on and available, because my life was so full of God knew what, and I couldn't do that if I'd been drinking. So I just didn't drink. And then I didn't drink the next day, and I didn't drink the day after that. And I never didn't drink, I just didn't drink. So it wasn't a song and a dance and a this and a that, I just didn't drink. And people would be like, oh, have a drink. And I would hold the drink and put it down and keep moving because I didn't drink. And I ended up, I think 12 years later. So what it means for me to thrive without alcohol is a sense of freedom. It's that sense of being fully myself on every level and being aligned with myself and liking all of that. And I think it's such an immense privilege. And I say that as somebody who, if I feel like a drink, will go and have a drink. And I'm there now. But I also, within that, I'm very clear that the role that alcohol plays is that it debilitates. And so I am very clear in the places, like if I'm on TV at 6 a.m, there's no alcohol happening. If I'm flying somewhere, I don't understand that. You wake up to fly and then you drink. I've never quite worked that one out. So I have zero tolerance. So it's quite funny. The kids have more tolerance than I do. So I am very clear about my parameters around alcohol and the price I will pay if I drink.
Yeah.
So my home is full of the 0%, whatever, 0.5% beer or something like that, because I set my life up that if I want a beer, I can have a beer, but it's that beer. Does that make sense? So I'm a real systems woman. I'm like, let's make our mind up what we're doing and then systemize the crap out of your life so that thing that you want to do works.
Yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. Love that freedom. Okay. And so anything you want to leave the listener with? Any last bit of information or wisdom that you want to share?
I don't know about wisdom. I think that my understanding is this. I used to resist change because it frightened me so much. I spent so much of my life utterly petrified that I was going to not feed the kids, that I was going to die. I didn't know, death didn't frighten me so much. I was like, let them get past a certain age and then I'll be okay. But it was this absolute fear I was going to screw up constantly. And I had to really make peace in my life about that. And that's why I talk so much about failure. And so the thing that I have hung on to forever is that there are two core tenets. One is that change is inevitable and suffering is optional. So and I had this across Nosh Detox actually for like a year. I put it as my banner till my branding people told me to take it down. So change is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? So go with the change because change is growth. Pain is not growth, change is growth.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is the Marianne Williamson concept, where she said our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Yeah.
And I made so much peace with that. I'm a very powerful woman. And I like that about myself immensely. I am 100% committed to staying at my absolute zenith of power for every day of my life. And I manage my energy. Therefore, I manage my nutrition. Therefore, I manage my health to be that person for me every day.
That's fantastic. I love that Marianne Williamson quote. And I think a lot of us are frightened of being powerful beyond our measure. And actually, when you become alcohol free, you realize how much power you have, and
which is frightening, I guess, because then you got to go do something with that.
Absolutely. It's exciting as well, though.
I love it, honestly. Absolutely. I've earned my life.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Geeta, thank you so much for being
a
guest on the podcast, and really appreciate all the wisdom and the knowledge, and it's been really great to have you as an expert on the show. So have a lovely week, and we'll speak soon. Take care.
Well, thank you, Geeta. That was an incredible story, and thank you so much for sharing and the wonderful tips on nutrition and sugar and just eating the right things, really. And that's the 3 things that you need on the plate, every plate: protein, fat, and fiber. So I hope you got something out of that. And I do love what she said about us being powerful beyond measure. I really want you to remember that you are powerful beyond measure, and it may be that you haven't seen that in yourself for a while, and it could be a long while, but you absolutely are. And I do hope that today has maybe just empowered you in some way and inspired you, and you can go into your week just thinking, I am powerful beyond measure. And so with that said, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my signature Thrive Alcohol Free Society group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.